The New Garden Friends Meeting Cemetery, which is located on the property still maintained by New Garden Friends Meeting, there's a marker for a Little Brook Schoolhouse that was there on that property. And that schoolhouse was used to educate Quaker children who were, in this period, exclusively European American. But they also had use during a different portion of the day, providing education to African American students. The best documented time period prior to such activity being illegal, we do know that Levi Coffin taught in that school to European American children, but also would have been teaching to the African American children. There's references in some letters from the 1830s that also speak of teaching in a school for African Americans. However, it's not clear if they were using that schoolhouse at New Garden or another location, because that would have been dangerous to include too many details. The fact that it was even mentioned is somewhat surprising. We don't necessarily know for certain if some of these individuals that were very committed to anti-slavery, if they were taking active personal involvement in the Underground Railroad, but they were at least sympathetic and were taking active roles in other community efforts that contributed to the ability for that to function, such as Quakers who were teaching African Americans. The laws changed, and so by a certain point it was illegal. We don't have formal school records or list of students, but we know through individual letters and passing obscure references that there were Quakers who were continuing to teach African Americans in Guilford County how to read after it was already an illegal activity, and contributing to literacy and those kind of empowering activities certainly contributed, whether you were providing a safe house or not, to the ability for that movement to grow and flourish in this region. This was not a hospitable area to be staying, and if you had skills and enough of your family were able to move with you, it made sense to relocate to an area where you could fully utilize your skills. Another thing I didn't mention with the Quaker Free Negro population, the individuals who were owned by the yearly meeting, oftentimes they'd be hired out, but they'd be apprenticed to learn trades so that they would be skilled workers, so that they could then, when they went to another area, they would have skills that they could use to start up and provide for themselves. I think the best documentation for some of that actually comes not from people who were legally owned by North Carolina Yearly Meeting, but by a fascinating case of a former Quaker who owned slaves through marriage. He never rejoined Friends, but was brother to one of the leaders of North Carolina Yearly Meeting during this time period, George C. Mendenhall, who's been a member of the legislature and a local attorney and person of some prominence, owned a number of slaves, and there's a decent documentation about those people and their ages and some of their names, and also the fact that a number of them he did hire out an apprentice with some of his brother's businesses and other resources, especially in the Jamestown community of Guilford County. And a number of those individuals over time did relocate to Ohio.